Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I would recommend Angel Care to anybody. They have really helped me regain my strength.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
I couldn't have survived this without Angels Care.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, as always, Jeff Durall. We're at Custer Hall on the campus of Fort Hays State University, third floor at the Docking Institute of Public Affairs with its director, Dr. Gary Brinker. We visited with Dr. Brinker earlier about a Kansas Speak survey, and now the new survey is out for 2015. And we're going to go over some of the numbers and crunch a few of those with Dr. Brinker. First, though, if you would, Dr. Brinker, tell us about the Docking Institute, its mission, its purpose.
The Docking Institute has been around a while. Back in 1980, the Docking Institute began, and our mission is to serve nonprofits and government entities around the state of Kansas by providing them with cutting-edge research services at highly competitive costs.
I know you are in discussion with the USD 489 School District now about a potential survey on a coming possible bond issue the district is considering, and the Docking Institute may be working on those types of research issues then.
Absolutely. We're doing several exciting projects right now, and that's only one of them. We are looking to do a bond survey for the local school district. Our bond surveys kind of give them an idea of which of the projects they want to do are popular, which ones are not, and it kind of helps them put a bond together that they can be more confident the voters will approve of. And we're also, if I might mention, we're also currently doing a survey for the student government associations of all 7 Regents universities. We're polling the students as well as the faculty and staff of all 7 campuses on their opinions of guns on campus. And actually that's one of the questions that we ask statewide on our Kansas Speak survey.
And we'll get into that in a few minutes. So, Dr. Brinker, how does this benefit students?
Kansas Speaks, well, it provides first a lot of employment opportunities for them. We've got a 25-station calling center. We do this survey by telephone, and so we hire about over 100 students work in our calling center. We've got a payroll of about $8,000 a week. So they benefit that way. They also benefit just because of what Kansas Speaks contributes to all citizens of Kansas. It provides a way for not only our leaders but concerned citizens to know what exactly do Kansans as a whole think about some of the public policies that are legislations being passed on.
I think I have the number is about 1,252 Kansas residents were surveyed in the Kansas Speak survey. Is this a pretty good sample, random sample?
Actually, Mike, I think that is the number we attempted. We had 600 completed interviews on this one. And that gives you a confidence interval of under a margin of error of less than 5%. And that's pretty standard for surveys.
So let's get into the survey a little bit for 2015. First of all, this one gained national attention. A little surprised by that?
It did, for the first time. You know, before we had, I think, a New York Times op-ed that was writing an opinion on guns that cited, that question about guns on our survey. But up until then, no. The state media has been pretty good at disseminating the results. But this is the first time that we got pretty widespread national media attention on our survey. Which is good news for all the work and extensive survey that goes into this. Oh, absolutely. Nothing could make me happier than our survey getting a national audience, and particularly it gives that exposure to the university, which is of course something that we're very happy to do.
Well, let's start with the numbers. Any surprises in this survey, Dr. Brinker?
Several. You know, there's several, mostly social issues such as gay marriage and immigration, guns, that, you know, assuming Kansas is a conservative state, you would have expected much more conservative answers to those questions. But what Kansas Speaks seems to be showing is that that Kansas as a whole don't seem to be quite as conservative as the government, as the elected officials that are passing legislation in Topeka.
Tell us about the numbers and go through some of the charts for us, would you?
We think these are some of the more significant findings. I guess your audience mostly knows that the state's fundings for education just recently switched to a block grant system. So we asked our respondents about how they thought that new system of funding education affected the quality as well as their costs. And the results were not good on either. As you can see, about 2/3 said that the new system resulted in a lower quality of education. And then here we can see that over half said that it also resulted in higher costs in the taxes and fees that they paid.
All right, and
of course, we did see a lot. We saw a strong correlation with people that had kids in school. Were much more likely to say it was more expensive and resulted in lower quality.
And the next one then?
This is where we ask about same-sex marriage, of course, which is was recently pretty much determined by the Supreme Court. My understanding is we do have gay marriage, or same-sex marriage, I should say, in Kansas. And this survey results showed that, surprisingly, I thought, that almost half, 47%, said that they favored same-sex couples to be legally married and have full rights of opposite-sex couples. You can see about 1/3 were totally opposed to same-sex unions in any way, and about 1/5 said that they supported civil unions but not full marriage. So this was one of the ones that kind of surprised me. This one as well. Of course, our Secretary of State Kobach has in the past few years expressed a strong concern with voter fraud in our society, or I'm sorry, in our state. These results show that over half of our respondents anyway support full citizenship or a path to full citizenship for undocumented immigrants. And I should point out that in the survey we did state specifically that these are immigrants that, of course, other than being in the country illegally, did not have any kind of a criminal record.
And suffice it to say, a lot of taxpayer money has been spent on this so-called voter fraud investigation and illegal immigration investigation that Kobach's been involved in. Fair to say?
Absolutely. Well, I would assume that. One thing that I am more confident of is that it's disenfranchised a lot of voters. I think there's pretty strong evidence for that.
Several thousand, as a matter of fact, I believe.
At least, yes.
All right, and the next up on the chart?
This is about, of course, another contentious issue in Kansas, the expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. I think probably most people know that the federal legislation made that option available to states that would allow them to give federally funded Medicaid to many more people that were otherwise not eligible. And as you may know, Kansas and several other states opted not to expand Medicaid. From what I've seen in the media, there are other sources that suggest that a majority of Kansans want this, and of course, our survey, as you can see, shows that almost 60% support expanding Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act.
Now let's talk about a next chart in that series, Dr. Brinker.
Again, another issue that's been pushed by our Secretary of State Kobach is with regard to voter fraud. The Secretary has initiated a lot of new legislation that with regard to voter, proof of citizenship when registering and showing a government photo ID when voting. And of course, this we ask about Kansans' concern for voter fraud. And although you can see almost half said that it was a minor problem, only less than 1/5 said that they thought it was a major problem.
That's an amazing stat right there. So sales tax, property tax.
That's our next graph here, and this is again asking about the new tax policy that again, the governor sort of led the changes, and this is where we ask how our respondents thought that these changes in the tax policy had affected how much that they paid in their state sales tax, property tax, and state income tax. And as you can see, almost 3/4 said that they had the impression that their taxes had gone up.
And 61% of the respondents in the survey, according to the Kansas Speak survey, said that governor's tax policy had been a failure or tremendous failure in terms of economic growth. So that relates as well.
Yeah, here's the graph for that. And, you know, I think this is probably the result that caught the national media's attention, and they looked at it and looked at the survey and picked up some other results. But this is the one I think that was, I don't know if this was unexpected, but this is something certainly that many people were curious about, is what is the governor's approval rating now, or what is his the impression of his tax policy. And as you can see, I'm sorry you can't see the rest of these labels here, but there was almost nobody said that it was a tremendous success. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We can move to one of the other graphs. Yeah, go ahead with that.
7% said it was a success. 32% said it had no effect. But you can see 61% said that it was either a failure or a tremendous failure. And I think this sort of mirrors what we've been seeing in the media.
And we've seen plenty of examples from Ed Flente, for example, and some of the other economists who've looked at this and said that the three-legged stool approach is the one that should be taken, and yet was dissolved basically with the legislature and the governor. And this is the result we're seeing, apparently.
Right, and of course, when it was initiated, it was criticized as being that this has been a disproven, or there's no empirical evidence that this tax policy works. You know, it was based on the economist Laffer, who really, the Laffer effect, it takes into account when taxes on the rich are much higher than they are now. And so not only is there weak theoretical support for that, but as we can see now, that the shot in the heart of adrenaline it did not have the same effect as adrenaline. It was.
There's another chart that I think is coming up next that really drew national attention as well, and that was the approval ratings, where the governor's approval rating is actually lower than President Obama's rating.
Yeah, and again, I think this is what caught the national media's attention. You can see President Obama and Governor Brownback right here, and these are kind of ranked in order of unpopularity, I guess, or disapproval. This is measuring job approval. And so you could see that the red is very dissatisfied, almost had the same percentage, 48% were very dissatisfied, both with President Obama and Brownback. But you can see that when we look at somewhat dissatisfied, there was a higher percentage that were somewhat dissatisfied with the governor and a smaller percentage. So you can see that there's actually President Obama, the green and blue, is very and somewhat satisfied, is a higher percentage than Governor Brownback. Senator Moran and Roberts did okay. You can see there's roughly about equal numbers of approval and disapproval for them. States, we always get high ratings for the respondents' own state senator and their own rep. For some reason, my own is not part of the bad guys in the legislature, so you can see they do pretty well. But the Kansas legislature overall, you can see over half dissatisfied with the legislature, and only 4% are very, very satisfied.
Well, a lot of numbers, Dr. Brinker, but we've only got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to ask you about this one from the survey. More than half of respondents did not know the name of their state representatives or senators.
That was, I don't know if that was surprising for me, but it was very telling because I've just been getting the impression since I've moved to Kansas more and more that Kansans are very loyal to their party. And this suggests to me that there's a lot of people out there that go to the polls and don't really pay too much attention to who they're voting for. They just vote for their party. And that, to me, is the only thing that would explain why so many people just don't even know who their senator or representative is. They just, well, I voted for the Republican or I voted for the Democrat. I'm not really sure who it is, but they just kind of assume that their parties are going to promote their interests regardless of which candidate gets elected.
And finally, not to end on a total negative note, about 3/4, 76% of the respondents in the survey for Kansas Speaks still think Kansas is at least a good place to live.
Oh, yeah.
It is down 10% from a year ago, but still 76%, 3/4, think it's still a good place to live, even
Yes.
with the numbers.
Yes, you're right. And those have gone down a little bit, but not much. Another interesting finding, because we always ask about how Kansans think the state economy will threaten them or their families' welfare. And we kind of expected that to go up, but actually for the last 2 or 3 years, that has been edging down slightly. People have been becoming slightly less concerned with the effect of the economy. So that was kind of puzzling.
Although more women are afraid of the economy threatening their families, perhaps, than men.
That's true. Women, as well as our lower income respondents, tended to answer that having more concern.
Because it may have a bigger impact on them and their financial situation?
I think the tax changes that have occurred have had a disproportional effect on the poor. It has shifted the tax burden down. It has resulted in fewer social services being provided. So it makes perfect sense to me that women and the poor would feel this to a greater extent than the rest of us.
Fascinating survey, Dr. Brinker. Thank you very much for you and your students pulling
for
this
having
off
me.
for us once again.
Thank you for having me.
The numbers are available at Kansas Speaks, and of course on the Forte's website.
Yes, it's easy to find. If you just Google Docking Institute, find our homepage, and there's a Kansas Speaks tab. You can look at this edition or any of the 7 previous editions that we've done.
Dr. Gary Brinker, Director of the Docking Institute of Public Affairs at Forte State University, our community connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
There's not any words to describe their kindness.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
They saved my life.